Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Bonjour, j'espère que tout va bien. Thank you for being here to learn a little bit more about English and how things work at Brébeuf regarding English. As you may have seen, my name is Melissa White. This is my 11th year teaching at Brébeuf, and I was lucky enough to be given a job offer at Brébeuf right after graduating from university in my teaching degree. So I am a so-called senior teacher of English at Brébeuf. So thank you very much for being here. I'm going to give everyone a couple more minutes to sign in and get organized. If you've been here before for other conferences, I believe you know that you can ask questions in the question and answer section of the presentation. So I'm going to be going through a few of the basics about the program, and then I'd be happy to address any of your questions after that. So as I said, we're going to be going through some of the basics of the program. We're very proud of our English as a second language program at Brébeuf. It's one of our very unique features, as you'll see when I go through the program, and it's something that makes our school particularly interesting because of the different options that we offer for English within a French school. So today I want to look at the levels of English that we have, how many classes of English we have per week. We have at Brébeuf a slightly different system than a lot of schools. We have a 5-day cycle during the week because we have Friday exams in the afternoons each Friday. So that means that we run on a weekly schedule. I'll also talk about how students are classified. Hopefully maybe we have some actual students who are thinking of coming to Brébeuf here with us today. I'll talk a little bit about our pedagogical approach and give you an idea of some of the resources and texts that we use in class. There's also a bunch of extracurricular activities in English. The big question is always what happens post-Brébeuf as far as English and what our students are accomplishing out in the world after they've been at Brébeuf. I'll give you a quick rundown of my wonderful colleagues, and then, like I said, we'll get to your questions. So hopefully that will be a good way to get things started. So yes, at Brébeuf, I'm going to talk about the boys' school and the girls' school because it's slightly different. For the boys' school, we have 4 levels, as you can see. We go right from a beginner class, which we call the regular level, and that's really to help students gain confidence in using English and building a positive relationship with the language, because sometimes we have students who haven't had an opportunity to practice a lot of English, or they don't have a lot of opportunities to use English outside of school. And so this is a great level that really helps students become more fluent and more confident in English. From there, we have intermediate. These are often students who are quite fluent in English when it comes to speaking, but do need more emphasis on the other 2 competencies, which are comprehension and writing. So we tend to spend a lot more time working on improving reading skills and writing skills. Then we have high intermediate, which is, again, usually quite fluent students who might still need some help with writing and improving their overall fluency when it comes to the language. And finally, we have advanced, where the students often are very strong in English. They have an English background of some sort, and they tend to we tend to focus a lot more on English literature and culture at that level. That's not to say that we don't cover English literature in every level, but certainly in the advanced level, there is an even greater focus on English literature. And so for the girls' school, you'll see it's very similar. It's just that because we have 2 groups of girls on the in the girls' school for each cohort, we do have 3 levels of English instead of 4. So we find that this is an added bonus for the girls because the English groups do tend to be a little bit smaller. And we have the same 3 levels: regular, high intermediate, and advanced. Moving on. So the big question, number of English classes per week. As some of you might have known, we do have 45-minute periods per week from secondary 1 to 4. So in English, we have 3 45-minute periods per week. And in secondary 5, the classes are 50 minutes long, and we have 4 classes per week. For classification of students. So once students are accepted at Brébeuf, they're invited to come and write a classification exam in the spring. The exam doesn't change anything about their acceptance. It's just so that we can figure out what is the best level of English for the particular student. As you can see, it evaluates listening and reading comprehension, grammar and writing. We find that the system works quite well, and we inform the students of their English level when they arrive at school in September. Pedagogical approach. So yes, what do we teach? How do we teach? Why do we like teaching English? That's a very big discussion, but very briefly, as I mentioned earlier, we have 3 competencies. We have speaking, understanding, and writing. One of the big things that we really are proud of and is very much at the core of our English as a second language philosophy is that we do use authentic texts. By that, I mean that they're not graded readers. They're not, the vocabulary hasn't been adjusted from the original text. If we're reading Shakespeare, we're reading Shakespeare. If we're reading Margaret Atwood, we're reading Margaret Atwood. If we're reading, George Orwell, then it's the original text. So authentic texts, we look at novels, we look at short stories, poems, nonfiction articles. Every teacher has a little bit of a different interest when it comes to English, and we always feel that it's important that the teacher is passionate about what he or she is teaching, and that one of the ways of doing that is for each of us as teachers to explore with students texts that we're passionate about and that fit the appropriate level of the group that we are teaching. We have lots of discussions, lots of oral interaction, presentations, debates, theatrical presentations, videos, filmmaking. There's all kinds of different projects that come up depending on which group the student is in. We do focus on academic writing, and there is a ministry exam in secondary 5 for English as a second language, so we also help students prepare for that. And one of the other things that we pride ourselves on is that it is English only in the classroom for both teachers and students. Of course, when students arrive who are perhaps not as comfortable in English, that means a lot of focus on strategies about using the language, even when you're not sure exactly what the right word is or what might be the best way to go about communicating your message. And finally, English culture is a big part of our world, and it's a big part of the English language, so we definitely spend time looking at the culture itself that comes along with the language. So one of the questions that parents often have when we're doing a in-person open house is what kind of books do the students read? And given that there's 7 of us in the department, we have 4 different levels on the boys' side, 3 different levels on the girls' side. Secondary 1 to 5, there's a lot of different teachers and a lot of different English classes going on. So the next few slides just give you an idea of some of the novels that the students read over the course of their 5 years at Brébeuf. I'm sure you'll recognize some classics in there, and there's also some modern additions, which is often a great way of presenting the language to students because there's books that you should read and there's books that are fun to read, and there's sometimes books that are luckily both. So we tend to try and have a mix of things so that students remain engaged and interested in the English language. So yes, as you can see, there's quite a few, and this is just some of the examples. We have many different ones that we use depending on the year. So if students are wanting to do more in English that isn't involved in the actual English class, you can see we have writing contests, conversation classes, we have a quiz club, student newspapers, which I've been overseeing the Secondary 5 newspaper for the last 4 years now. And the students, it's student run, and the students are very much engaged with it. And we're also very proud that not only do we have a French theater production in Secondary 5, but we also have an English theater production in Secondary 4 and 5, which is a really big highlight to kind of finish the English experience at high school here at Brébeuf. So it's the big question is always, well, if my child comes to Brébeuf, can he go to McGill Medical School? Can she go and study in the States? Can she go to England? What is the future if my child follows the English program here at Brébeuf? It's a complicated question because a lot of it has to do with student motivation and how much time the student devotes to English outside of the classroom. However, from all of our levels of students, we've had students go on to English CEGEPs, go on to English universities, and many students who end up working in either a bilingual environment or working in an English environment, traveling, living in different places around the world, etc. And it's always wonderful to speak to them when they come back to see us, and they talk very highly of the grounding that they were given in English here at our school, which is very heartwarming and very lovely to hear. So the short answer is yes, English post-Brébeuf is very possible, and many students are very successful. So it isn't something that should be concerning or should be anything that isn't possible, despite the fact, it is a French school, but we have a very strong English program here as well. And finally, I'm going to go through relatively quickly, but these are my lovely colleagues. Julie O'Reilly, she is a Brébeuf alumna. She's been at Brébeuf since 2003, and she's a big fan of American literature, young adult literature. I believe she's actually working on a young adult novel, so she's got a fantastic teacher that I'm very happy to call a colleague. We have myself, so yes, my big passion is Canadian literature and modern literature, so I tend to focus on that, especially when teaching Secondary 5. We also have Jeremy Cohen, who I actually went to do my teaching degree with as well, so we've known each other for a very long time. Jeremy also oversees our writing contest, and he is a big fan of science fiction and has actually published his own novel, which is actually available for sale at our bookstore here at Brébeuf. So we also have lovely Caroline. She is fluently trilingual. She's traveled. She's got an amazing background, and she tends to focus a lot on modern British literature as well as young adult literature. Jeremy Fuster, we have two Jeremys, so we have Jeremy Cohen and Jeremy Fuster. He's a former anthropologist and has, again, like Carolyn, traveled extensively, and to make his curriculum even more interesting, he teaches Shakespeare, but he also teaches South Asian literature, so he's definitely a favorite in the department. We have Alyssa Chiamaro, and she's joined us in 2017. She's very much into theater and has worked in the CEGEP sector as well, particularly with assessment, and has a great deal of experience with literature and English. She has a master's in English literature as well. And we have Yuki Shinonome, who is fantastic. She used to be a professional translator, but we're lucky enough to have her teaching with us now. And she tends to focus on classic British literature and current events. She is very engaged with the students, and again has been with us since 2016, and is a great part of the department. So that's it for my PowerPoint. So if anyone has any questions, you're welcome to publish them in the question and answer section. This might be a good time as well to mention that there is a French version of the PowerPoint slides that we have pre-recorded that's also going to be available on the open house video. Sorry, not the open house video, the open house website. So you'll be able to access the French version as well. Excellent question. So wanted to know if a child starting in beginner or intermediate level in secondary 1 could eventually make his or her way to advanced level. Yes, we do have a procedure in place. At the end of each year, the English teachers sit down as a department and we look at all of the students, how they have done throughout the year, and we make recommendations and decisions about students who should move up a level, and whether students should perhaps be changed to a lower level so that it's in a more appropriate challenge for them. So it is possible. It's not always, it is possible, but there are also administrative constraints to take into part because we do have 36 students per group, so it's sometimes a matter of switching students back and forth, but it is something that we do have students who move from one level to another each year. So it's not as if the student starts in one group and will forever be there, not necessarily. So we have the same question. I hope that answered your question. Because that's certainly one nice part about the open house in person is that we get to meet parents, but we also get to meet students, and I always enjoy seeing a few faces that I met at open house in the hallways for secondary 1 the following year. Okay, so we have a question here. There's no off-topic questions. Okay. Jackson, excellent question. If a student has studied in English up in primary school, Mrs. O'Reilly actually did study in French all the way through, but she was lucky to grow up in a truly bilingual home. So that was where her background was. But as far as ensuring that the French level is sufficient, I can't speak for my colleagues in the French department. However, I do know that we do have students who come from the English primary schools and end up doing well. If you have questions, I could certainly point you in the right direction to contact someone at the school to see if there's someone who could answer more thoroughly about what could be done to make sure that your child is as prepared as possible for the class or for the school in French, because I know it is a big transition. So sorry, Jackson, for a bit of a non-answer, but if you'd like more information, I can do my best to get that information for you. Annabelle, no school. Yes, that's true. Everyone's in school still right now. So in a week, we have from secondary 1 to 4, we have 3 45-minute periods. And in secondary 5, we have 4 50-minute periods. So It's like I said earlier, it's a little bit different than what a lot of schools do. Personally, for the language classroom, I find it very useful to have more periods but of a shorter duration, because I do find that often the students, especially if they're not as comfortable in English, it's a little exhausting. And I know because I'm from Ontario and I'm still improving my French and still learning French, and it kind of is a little, it's exhausting to have to speak in a second language or a third language, and so that way the students can be efficient with their time and energetic with the time that they have, and then move on from there. So overall, I found it works very well with the number of classes that we have each week. For the conversation groups, I'm guessing you're asking about the conversation club as one of the extracurricular activities. It's actually run by one of the English teachers, by Carolyn Gustini, and so she's the one that takes care of it. And so she's the one that's interacting with the students, so they get a lot of one-on-one focus with an English speaker, which works well. At the school, there's also a tutoring program that is available where older students volunteer to tutor students in a variety of subjects, and English is one of those possibilities. So if it's something that you would find useful for your student, or for your child, sorry, you could certainly look into that as an option as well. Okay, yes, I will definitely, Jackson, get you the information after the presentation, so that you can find out more about it. Let's see. Are there trips to an English environment, Ontario, etc.? Sometimes, not necessarily in every grade. Most recently, before COVID, the secondary 5 trip that the students take in the spring was to either England, Scotland, or Ireland, or a combination of the two. So that is definitely something that's available to the students. Oh, I think we have if you go to Brébeuf, am I going to have the same teacher the whole year? I think that's what it is. If that's not right, Maxim, please let me know. Maxim, for the whole year, yes, you will have the same English teacher, but from year to year, it will change. So generally speaking, students may have the same teacher from not necessarily from one year to the next, but maybe, for example, this year I'm teaching secondary 5, and some of the students that I'm teaching in secondary 5, I also taught in secondary 1. So it's nice to see the students come around again. But generally speaking, every year there's a new teacher for the group. Okay. There used to be summer trips with family stays in Cambridge. Not specifically organized through the school, but I know that there are other opportunities to do so outside of the school if it's something that you wanted to explore, but it's not something that we organize as a department as far as summer trips. Okay, the question is, what is the average Eng score for a class? Could I ask you to be a little more specific? I'm not sure. Are you talking about the grades, or I'll maybe give it a couple more minutes if anyone has any other questions. Otherwise, I know this will be published on the open house website for the school, so it's something that you can always come back and refer to if needed. If you have any other questions, you can certainly reach out to the school and ask to be put in touch with the English department, and we'll do our best to answer your questions. The average, okay, no problem. typos happen. It's fine. The average of the group, it depends on the year, the class. It's very difficult to say in general what the average is. I can tell you that our students do very well on the ministry exams in secondary 5, and that generally speaking, our averages are quite good. If you have a more specific question, I can try and answer it, but like I said, it really depends on the year and the level of English, and a variety of factors, so it's difficult to say what the average would be across the board. All right, so thank you very much for being here. I really appreciate it. And yeah, it's been great answering your questions. And if there's anything else, like I said, you're welcome to contact the school, and we'd be happy to try and get your answers for your questions. So have a great evening. Enjoy the beautiful weather outside. It's going to be a great weekend, and hopefully, perhaps I'll have a chance to meet some of you next year. All right, goodbye.